I am Denise Griffitts, and this is your partner in Success Radio. Today, my guest, Bradley Rausch, shares why growth gets heavier as you scale. And stop and think about that. Why growth gets heavier as you scale. He's basically telling us how leadership personality directly influences customer experience and retention. And today's episode of Your Partner in Success Radio is brought to you by Cynthia Kay, also known as CK. She is a communication strategist, a speaker, and a business advisor. And CK helps professionals communicate with greater clarity, confidence, and impact. Her practical approach helps business owners, leaders, and sales professionals build stronger relationships, earn trust, this is important, and create better business results. And watch for her upcoming book, Connect, Communicate, Close, which will soon join Ben Gay the Third's Closer series. I will be there as well, along with other respected sales and business classics. I can't talk today, Bradley. You're going to be on your own. Today, to learn more about CK and her work, visit cynthiakbiz.com. Now back to my guest. Bradley Rausch is a client experience architect. He's a strategic advisor and the go-to back-end profit partner for founder-led coaching businesses and group programs. And over the past 6 years, he has helped founders transform rapid, often chaotic growth into sustainable, higher margin businesses by improving client experience, retention, referrals. We talk a lot about that, Bradley and I do, and operational systems. And his work focuses on helping companies grow without adding unnecessary complexity, allowing founders to build businesses that become lighter, not heavier, as they scale. Bradley, did I tell you you're going to be on your own today? You really are. I'm so sorry. Today, I'm just having one of those days where my brain is working, my mouth's not so much.
You are all good. You are all good. Take your time.
Well, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for being a sponsor of the show. I truly appreciate your support and your belief in the conversations that we share with our audience. So before we get going, tell people who you are and why you do what you do, because I had never heard how do you describe yourself? And I remember telling you, I had never heard of how you describe yourself.
Well, I
A
appreciate you
client
having
experience architect. That's new to me.
well, I appreciate you having me on, Denise. Thank you. So I work with 7 and 8 figure coaching, consulting, SaaS, and service-based businesses usually in the online space, to very simply put, help them make more profit from every single client that they close. Where the business idea came from is we spent the last decade plus of this online business industry world that we've created, perfecting how to sell, but we've spent hardly any time even attempting to perfect how to make sure that we're delivering what we sell and to underpromise and overdeliver, which will lead to more upsells, which will lead to more revenue from the back end without having to pay for it in acquisition, which will lead to more referrals, which gets our cost of acquisition even lower. And so the effort you put into the back end, I find, multiplies much faster than the effort and the investment you put into the front end. And so that's kind of where the idea for this came from.
And that makes perfect sense because I've been building websites for about 20 years. This podcast is, God, it's elderly. It's 18 and a half years old. It's old enough to drink, drive, or vote, not letting it vote. But I have found that if I'm paying attention to the people that I'm working with and a lot less, attention to why I think it's important and how I can come out ahead from it, it works. People want to work with me. They want to refer me. But if it's all about me, and we see this in so many businesses, it's all about me, my, that doesn't really work these days, does it?
It doesn't, and I find that the experience you can create on the back end of the business, a lot of people will get into it and say, "Oh, it's woo woo, get your clients to love you," and this and that. I I really pride myself on making sure that there's, I call it a thousand lead bullets, not one silver bullet. And there's usually so many little pieces that you can pick up and implement into the back end of your business, many of which I'm sure we'll get into today, but that you can make that can make a really substantial difference. It's not something where it's like you need to overhaul the entire process. It's simply have this conversation at this point in the client journey. It's call this metric or call this number out or start tracking this thing, et cetera, et cetera. That really, I think, can just pay huge dividends across the company.
And I've heard you say why founder self-awareness. This is important, everybody. Write this down. Why founder self-awareness determines it's going to be one of those days. I'm just going to apologize right now. Why that self-awareness determines whether clients stay or whether they quietly leave. And it's the quiet ones that just disappear that you have no idea why they did it. What did you do
100%.
wrong? How did you not pay attention? What happened?
100%. One of my favorite questions to actually pose to a founder, 'cause, with my clients, I'll spend a lot of time working with the founder, individually before we roll out changes or a new strategy or new process to the team. And one of my first and favorite questions that I always will ask any founder that I'm working with is, essentially put simply, where does your discretionary effort go? And the way that we look at this is, I'll ask them to pull up the last week, 2 weeks, maybe month of their calendar and look at all of those little blank spots, as few and far between as they may be sometimes, but look at all those little blank spots. You had a half-hour window last Tuesday, you had a 2-hour, thing that got canceled on Thursday, and you had free time there. Ask yourself, where did that time go? 99% of the time, just because of the prioritization of the industry that, we're in, and, how you see people talking about, oh, grow the business and front end, et cetera. 99% of the time, that person's discretionary effort, right? Because then at that point, they have that time free. It's to their discretion. Their discretionary effort will go to something along the lines of the front end, rewriting an ad copy for the thousandth time, looking over marketing numbers, making sure that your getting your salespeople to be 1%, 2% better by doing, the 10,000th role play of the week, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that any of that is bad. That's all, of course, super important. But the point is, if a portion of that time didn't go to asking yourself, even just a very simple question of, how could we get our average client to stay 10% longer? How could we get our average client to buy 10% more from us? How could we make the average client worth 10% more to us so that we don't have to rely on acquisition so much to grow our revenue? But oftentimes those types of questions aren't really prioritized from a founder. And I believe that culture just plays a massively, massively important role in this entire conversation. And when you as the founder aren't prioritizing those things yourself, disseminating it down to the team, they will always do what you do. They won't do what you say. And so disseminating that down to the team becomes really, really difficult. And so that's why I always make it a priority to work with the founder and kind of course correct there from a culture perspective before we get into anything more tactical, more, framework oriented.
And we are, listen, as entrepreneurs, as people, we are literally attached to our calendars. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm attached to my cell phone." Nope, mine's underneath the cat somewhere. I don't pay much attention to it, but my calendar can rule me if I'm not very careful. And that brings me to something you just said, that the connection between your internal team communication, long-term client trust is important. So I guess my question, Bradley, is do you say, listen, don't necessarily go with the calendar. If you've got a little 15 minutes where you can pick up and do a quick outreach, do it.
I think that 100%. And then to add to that as well, I think, especially for the founder who's a solopreneur and who is maybe running a side gig or is just starting this, just left their job and going all in on the business, very scrappy, startup oriented, type of person, type of founder. What I find is that again, I talk about discretionary effort a lot. So this is probably going to be one of the many times I say it on this conversation. Your discretionary effort, if you can, you know, eh, again, you have a moment, you have 15 minutes free, you have a slot in your schedule, whatever it is. Um, Pouring that into your customers, and this is true for even a simple e-com product all the way up to a mentorship that you're charging tens of thousands of dollars for. Um, Pouring that into your customers with what I like to call unmarketed delivery can be really, really powerful. So I'll give you two examples. One on the lower ticket side, let's say, an e-com product. I was actually just speaking in a mastermind the other day where all of it's a really cool niche, actually. All of their clients are online candle sellers. So they sell candles online. So, typical e-commerce, but it's all specifically, mostly, of course, women who run businesses selling candles. And we got into the specifics of, what does it look like to actually show up for your clients? Why is that even mattering? How does that contribute to your bottom and top line, et cetera? And one example that I gave them was, listen, you know, you take an hour of your time and you call the 5 most recent people, 10, 15 minutes each. The 5 most recent people who had an average order value of, your top 5%, right? Um, and you call them and you say, "Hey, this is so and so. I just really appreciate you making the purchase. This was a huge, relatively one of the larger purchases across my client base. I just wanted to take a moment and say I really, really appreciate it. Because of that, I'm actually going to give you 50% off on your next purchase with this coupon, da 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 da. And also, I'd love to ask you, is there one person that you by chance know who might also really enjoy these candles, these types of products? And if so, I would actually love to send them just a free little intro gift basket, welcome basket, et cetera, things like that um, from the company. That so A, you're spending, of course, your time. So yes, that, worth whatever you're calculating that to be. But then also, of course, you're factoring in, in that example, it's like, here's a 30 or 50% off coupon, factoring that in. And then of course, also just the cost you're eating for the little intro basket that you're sending somebody else. Um, I will argue 8 days a week that that spend of capital, right, in time and resources and money, that spend of capital will pay you back so much more than spending that time or spending that money that you would have spent there in ads or in, making organic content, even things like that, because you are literally connected right to the person who is the exact type of client that you want, and asking them to give you the name of someone else who could also be that exact type of client. And then guess what? You do the exact same thing with them. And so I think that we oftentimes so focus on, oh, how can I get more clients in the door? Stop and think about, how can I make the current clients that I have worth more to my business? And so that would be a lower end example. Much shorter one on the higher end. It's essentially the same thing. It's looking at the person who just paid you, I don't know, $10,000 for a year of individual one-on-one coaching, and looking at them and saying, okay, by week 3, week 4, they're probably having some wins. We have this really interesting way of forgetting about our wins that we've had and normalizing our progress. Take a moment to show the client, highlight just how far they've come. I like to introduce just what I call, check-in calls throughout a client success process, and where depending on the exact offer and the service and things, anywhere between maybe once a month up to, once a quarter, maybe even twice a year, have a dedicated call with the client, not to coach, not to a typical call. Not It's also not really a quote unquote check-in. It's a dedicated call to go over, this is exactly how far you've come. We started here. You told me 6 months ago you were here. You told me this was a concern for you. You told me this was really painful. And now look where you are. You just told me last week that you've said this, you've done this, et cetera, et cetera. Show them the real arc of their progress, and then use that kind of created equity there with the client to then say, again, who's one person that you know that you feel like could also really benefit from this? Or the clients that are now in your position. So that would be for pitching a referral, for pitching, perhaps let's say an upsell, getting them to buy more from you. It could be something as simple as saying, hey, the clients that I have who now have solved X and Y and Z problems, like we just established that you have, right? They're usually already starting to think about how to solve these other problems over here that they didn't have when they first came in, because that was, new levels, new devils. They didn't have those issues when they first came in, but now you're probably starting to think about these issues of scale and of getting more results, or if it's more B2C, it's getting more of these products or getting more of this stuff in your life, et cetera. I would love actually just to spend 5 minutes of this call talking about what a couple of those problems are, some basic solutions that I want you to start thinking about, but also an offer that I have over here that's actually uniquely designed to help in those situations. And you simply plant the seed of what it could look like to continue working with the client in another, I call it a container, or an offer, in another container, and start to kind of put that in their mind. And then of course find the right time to, bring it up, close, et cetera, and then move that into that. So I think there's so many ways that just giving a bit of discretionary effort on the back end can come back and can give you just tenfold what anything on the front end could give you. But I'm also biased, so grain of salt.
No, I think you're dead right. And you mentioned candles. I love candles. Most women do. I mean, it's a weakness. We know it. Cats, candles, we like them all. And I'm looking over on one of my bookcases. I've got 3 bookcases in here filled with books, but I will not light a candle. I've got cats. Ain't happening, hun, as we say in the deep south. But I have candle warmers. And I'm wondering, and this had just popped into my head while you were talking, if you're sending a gift basket to some of these people, you can go to Amazon and get the most beautiful candle warmers. You just put the candle underneath it. You can determine how much heat you want on it. You can put a timer on it. They're practical, they're beautiful, and they cost about $20. Does that make
100%.
sense? Yeah, so,
100%, yeah.
I mean, not
I think
everybody wants pears. Some people are allergic to them. I like pears, but I love candles more.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
just
think
things like that. I mean, that you can find out maybe what they don't have, and then that could lead to say, "Hey, by the way, have you thought about putting a line of your own candle warmers out there on Amazon to go with your candles?" You
exactly.
see where I'm going?
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah, I'm thinking with you. Okay.
There
So
you go.
and you said several things that unmarketed, delivery, I hadn't heard that term before. I love the check-in calls and the dedicated calls. But I have to ask you very quickly, what inspired you to focus on clients' experience instead of traditional marketing or sales? I mean, clearly you think differently than a lot of people, which I truly appreciate.
Well, I appreciate that. I take that as about the biggest compliment someone could give, so I will take that. My career started in, sales, and I was in several high-ticket online coaching offers, sold fitness coaching for a while, sold business coaching for a while, the kinda typical things, and I worked my way up to what was at the time the largest sales training and consulting organization. This was back in 2021, and they were doing 9 figures a year. It was the largest company I had ever at that point and still have ever, worked with. And I left after about 6 months, which that was the place everybody got fired from. That was the place nobody left because everybody wanted to stay. It was like the top of the mountain. But I left because I saw how horribly the clients were being treated on the back end and how everything was essentially being, again, focused on the front end for acquisition. Once you got them in, once you got the yes, once you got the payment, it really went downhill from there. And, we were battling with constant refund requests, constant client issues. And more so than that, the part that really deterred me is when I raised concerns about those things, as I was in a sales role, as I was in a front end facing role, the culture of the company, the feedback I got was, that's not my place. That's not my job. And it was the kind of question that came up then. It was like, well, whose job is it? Because nobody's doing it properly. And of course, to which that answer got, kind of faded with time. So I left and I went back to some of the clients that I had been closing for and doing sales for. And I said, hey, let me try my hand at your client success. Kind of explain to them the pivot I was making. And, I always do have to pause here and say there's a lot of people that gave me opportunities and open doors for me when they did not have to. If I'm ever up on a stage accepting something, there's about 7 names that are going to come up. But that helped me get to where I am. Uh, just insanely, incredibly grateful for a lot of those people, and so gave me those opportunities to really step into that, to learn with them, to learn through working with their clients. And then eventually, I actually did take another quote unquote role. I was the director of client success for an 8-figure B2B coaching and SaaS company. And did that for 4 years. Grew the team, helped them go from 7 to 8 figures. Ran a team of client success managers, et cetera, et cetera. And, just about a year ago, left that, and now I do this, full time, which is I come into, usually has to be doing at least over 1,000,000 a year, businesses, B2B or B2C, but again, kind of in the online space, coaching, consulting, SaaS service, and, essentially, again, helping them make more profit from every client that they work with. I come in as an outsourced client success director, work with everyone for, somewhere between about 5 to 7 hours a week, and help them install the systems and everything that they need to make sure that they are not losing as much money on the back end.
And I love what you were saying about the company that you quit. Did you shock them? Did they cry? It sounds like they probably should have.
No, they were pretty used to people churning and burning through, which probably isn't
Oh,
surprising. So it was it
that's
was
sad.
it was more of a personal, victory than a, oh, I'm gonna make waves.
Right.
I'm sure I was I'm sure there was 1,000 people in line behind me to get that job. So I'm sure I was replaced by Mondays.
But what you were describing from this company and from a lot of companies that we see is that pretty much everything they do is transactional,
Right. 100%.
and that's not
100%.
good. You listen, customers, clients after a while were like, "No, I'm a person. Treat me like a human being."
Right. 100%.
And
And
when that is not what's coming through the phone or the door, you're going to lose. I mean, at some point, you're going to fail.
at some point, I think your reputation catches up with you.
Exactly.
In some lights, I call what I do reputation management, really. Just simply because, you mentioned or you pointed out a minute ago the quiet client idea or component. You're right. It is the quiet ones that are the most expensive. The ones that are great, the ones that show up and the ones that give you their discretionary effort and the ones that, you love working with, they're fantastic. The ones that go kicking and screaming and tell you you're horrible and tell everybody they can possibly think of that you suck, you also know where they stand. But it's the ones where they're right in the middle. They don't say anything, they leave, they don't ask for a refund, they don't ask for a chargeback, da 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 da, whatever. You think you did a great job. You think you leave that situation going, yeah, I guess something just came up. I guess something, whatever. Um, and again, I always preface this by saying, I'm biased, grain of salt. But if somebody leaves a working relationship with you, and this is especially true again for more of those, high end consultative, one to one. Maybe it's a coaching, maybe it's an online program, something like that. A little less true in e-com or lower ticket, but it's my belief that um, people do not take seriously enough their obligation to deliver on the promises that we made, just essentially as an industry in general. The relationship, not to get woo woo here for a second, but whenever you are handing over sometimes, of course, an insanely large amount of money to someone and for a service or for a product, for a program, whatever it may be, um, I don't believe in general people take their obligation to make sure that they not only deliver but over deliver on that inherent promise. Um, I don't think that's taken seriously enough. And, I'm not by saying that I'm not looking for people to go and feel guilty or for, people to go and feel like, oh, well, okay, now I'm just a horrible person. That's more of a, again, as we said at the very beginning, just ask yourself, when was the last time you sat down and considered, how could I, how could I make sure one out of every 10 of my clients on average bought something else from me, stayed with me a little bit longer? And the answer to that is always something along the lines of, I need to underpromise and overdeliver better.
And you want those referrals. You talk about that a lot.
100%. Referrals, I think, are the kind of one of the most untapped, well, not kind of, are one of the most untapped revenue sources in, I would argue, 99% of businesses. I see a lot of people arguing that referrals are random, referrals are just this nice to have bonus. Like, it's the thing that goes in the other column on the P&L. It's not even like a dedicated, we made this much from referrals. Uh,
And they're hard
the,
to track, which is a problem because
well,
people
the
say,
hard,
well, I
hard,
don't know. I mean, did you hear about me on Denise's podcast? Where did you? We don't know. But if
right,
you
right.
are out there and you're consistent and you've got a good reputation and your clients and your consumers are saying, you've got to talk to Bradley. It's nebulous, but it works.
100%, 100%. I think just to, again, as I was saying earlier, just kind of 1,000 lead bullets to get like super tactical on this. One of the biggest mistakes I see so many people making with referrals is waiting until the very end of an engagement to ask for the referral, or really to ask for any piece of discretionary effort a client would give you, referral, considering an upsell, staying with you longer, etc. But focusing on referrals, oftentimes the argument see and hear so much is, well, I need to wait until the results that we get them objectively look the greatest. Well, when they look the greatest is probably when you've had the most amount of time to work with them. So toward the very end of the engagement. The problem with this is that people will not give you their discretionary effort when the results objectively look the greatest. We are not logical people. We are emotional people. We will give you discretionary effort when our belief in you is the highest. And that does not directly correlate to results. Belief correlates with very specific spikes along the client journey when you get your first win, when in the first 24 hours you over deliver on something. The first 24 hours after payment, you over deliver on something that the client wasn't expecting. And they say, wow, this is actually so much better than I thought it was going to be. I have offers that I work with that have in our client success SOPs literally asking for referrals within under 24 hours after the payment happens because we can systematically underpromise and overdeliver right when somebody comes in. It's magic, honestly. And so getting that tactical about it, that specific about it, um, people again will give you discretionary effort when their belief is highest, not when results objectively look the greatest. So ideally, you want to be asking for a referral somewhere between at most 30 to 50% of the way through the client journey. And that's also true for anything like upsells. anything like staying longer, getting into another container, even a downsell, etc. The thing that people are tracking, I think, is the wrong thing. They're tracking results. They should be tracking belief.
I agree with you, and let me go back to the podcast. And you already know this when I've been doing this for a long time, but right after the call, I always call my guests. I can't call you today because you're jumping on another call, but you're going to come back again in the new year, right? Right?
If you're inviting me, I totally will.
Oh, we
Absolutely.
talked about this in the green room. You can't tell me no. I asked you on the radio. But what I do, and this is, I don't think it's tricky at all. It really, speaks to what you're talking about. I will immediately spend, once we're done, and it's going to go out today, by the way. So it's all very fast with my podcast. And I will send you an email. And I've already told you in the green room, I would love to have a review on Apple and on my podcast website, yourpartnerinsuccessradio.com. And I can get snarky. I said, but it has to be glowing. Listen, and it does, by the way. And I will get some amazing, almost every single time, just absolutely amazing. Some of them bring tears to my eyes. Beautiful reviews about the conversation we just had because it's fresh. We're both excited. We both learned from each other. That's the best time. If I wait 2 weeks, you don't know my name, right?
We do have a short term
We do.
memory issue as a populace. Yes.
And we do. So I like what you're saying about do it when it's high, when, everybody is still in love with each other, that you're not worried about metrics, that you just believe that it's going to work as you promise it's going to work because you've proven yourself already. You took them as a client. They know that, now it's going to start working in their advantage. Why wouldn't they work with you?
100%. And on the going a little deeper into the belief spike
I'm
concept,
writing that down. Belief
there
spike. Okay. I'm taking notes.
there's a lot as well. Another very tactical piece here. There's a lot as well that can be done in those first, I call it the first 72 hours after the payment happens. And for the kind of psychological / woo woo background on this, when you think about it, after somebody hands over relatively large amount of money, and this is, or it could even be a small amount of money. This is true for something as a $29 candle or a $10,000 program, or anywhere in between. When somebody hands over an amount of money, of course, the more they hand over, it's the more volatile it is. But that's essentially, if you think about poker, they folded. They got nothing left. They're out of the game. You are the only one with any sort of, let's call it, next moves to play. And so what you do in those moments when they are, let's call, not to be dramatic, but when they are powerless, when they have no leverage left, they have no consideration, they have no whatever. I mean, sure, fine, you can get a refund or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like you've paid in, your money's gone. And so
And so is your time. And
what
I
you
think
get
that's what
100%,
bothers people more. You wasted my time. I don't like you
100%,
anymore.
100%. And so you have to ask yourself, what can I do? Even if, if my product is shipping in 5 to 7, my product is shipping in 5 to 7 business days, can I create, and these are like actual examples of clients I've worked with or masterminds I've coached in, my product shipping in 5 to 7 business days, can I create a 5-part series on YouTube that I email one day at a time to my clients? Day one is the day they pay, and they get an automated email right away. That's, hey, thank you so much for your order of XYZ, da da da. That's going to, as I mentioned before, that's going to be 5 to 7 business days. However, in the meantime, I'm so excited for you to start preparing. We'll just go with the candle example. I'm so excited for you to start preparing your home for these amazing new scents. Here is a 13-minute YouTube video that I put together on everything that you need to know about the best places to place these candles, how to take care of them so you get the most longevity out of them. These are high quality candles, high quality products. This is exactly what you need to know about decorating. Here's my favorite decorating tips for them. Da 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 da. And you make a YouTube series that nurtures them, that gives them value right up until the time that they actually receive the product, and you bridge that gap. On the higher end of things, obviously on the online space, we can automate, we can use AI to do a lot of different really amazing things. And so I don't see any reason why every single online offer cannot have, number one, an automated instantaneous delivery. If any part of it's custom, you just integrate with AI. But also number two, that you cannot systematically install a way to over deliver on the promises you made within the first hours to days after the payment. For example, in one of the offers that I'm currently consulting with right now, prior to me coming in, it's a marketing agency offer. They run ads for a specific type of client. Prior to me coming in, the first couple of days were just treated as an admin time. It was, oh, do you have your agreement signed? Oh, is everything logged in properly? Like it was more like a accusatory time where the business was like, okay, well, we have your money now. Now you just need to kind of do what we say. We flipped it entirely around, and where within the first 24 hours, every single client will get on a group call because to be honest, the volume of clients there um, just does not support a one-on-one. You get on a group onboarding call, which we hold once every single 24 hours. You get on that group onboarding call. You have a personalized onboarding experience with somebody who can show you step by step everything you need to do. You get all of your questions answered. You make sure that you're never in the dark. There's 4 specific emotional states I always encourage people to create in the first 72 hours. And we achieve this through that onboarding call. Those 4 states are safety, clarity, momentum, and identity. And so safety is essentially, I know that I'm not just a transaction to these people. Clarity is, I know what I need to do next. And more importantly, I also know what I don't need to do next, because what you don't do, what you shouldn't do, is just as important what you should do. And the third piece of clarity is, I know how it's going to feel along the way, because it is really important to normalize the volatility of clients' emotions right after the payment. Third, momentum is, not only have I done something, but I have gotten a lagging indicator from it. Oftentimes people will task clients right after payment with, set this up, watch this video, fill out this form, set up this thing, this process.
And that's where they
Problem with that,
freeze, isn't it? Everyone, and I've
100%.
had it happen, it happens to me. First of all, I'm cranky. You tell me to do something, I'm not gonna do it. I fight with my nerve system, don't tell me what to do. I get lost a lot. But I love the idea of, having a wiki, if you 2 have a way to communicate with them and say,
Yep.
"We're giving you a lot, let's help you."
Yep, 100%,
Okay,
100%,
keep
and
going.
it's a no, you're good. It's I call it a leading and a lagging indicator. So the leading indicator is I did the thing. Lagging indicator is I received this because I did the thing. I got XYZ result. And you showing them and saying, listen, you do this, you're going to get XYZ result. It also creates a lot of trust, because you're essentially telling them how the experience is going to go. It happens that way. You build trust. And then the
Right.
last part is identity. And so this is essentially saying, I'm a huge believer in community, regardless of, again, it's a $29 e-commerce or it's a $10,000 one-on-one coaching. I'm a huge, huge, huge believer in community and creating, there's all these different kinds of things, circle, school, even like for B2B stuff, there's Slack, like all of these different online pieces, even something as simple as a Facebook group for everybody who purchased something from you, all these community pieces. So with identity, it's this phrase I really love, which is identity through proximity. So what I love to do is make sure that for every single client coming in, it's one thing to say to somebody, cool, I see where you're at, and I know probably what you're also going to need because you just bought this thing. It's a whole nother level of resonating and getting your client to resonate with you when you can say, I not only know where you're at and know what you probably need, might need next, and know why you bought this, etc., but I'm going to introduce you to 3 other people who also have the same pain points or who also have the same goals that you have, and would love to see what you guys create and come up with together. And that can be facilitated, again, in as simple as something as a free Facebook group, all the way up to a completely built out, automated, something like school, the
Yeah.
Harmozy thing online, a
So
school, a
it's
circle
a
group,
way of
etc.
masterminding your people.
Correct.
Got it.
100%.
I'm listening. Okay. I'm also taking notes, so I'll stay on you keep talking. I'm fascinated.
So in those again, to be tactical with the onboarding, if you can install each of those pieces into your client journey within the first 72 hours, the LTV of your client will be drastically higher. They will tolerate so much more friction throughout the client delivery process. They will give you the benefit of the doubt when things go wrong, when things go awry. Not if they go wrong, not if something happens, but when something happens, because nobody's
When
perfect.
Yeah, we all know
When.
that.
Yes. And that client will be worth so much more to you in the long run.
And that makes sense. I mean, you've got to come back. I mean, seriously, and we may go back over some of these things. I'm going to pull quotes from the transcript when it's ready, but I love the way you think, and I'm finding it amazingly fascinating. You think a lot the way I do, but I have to be honest, I have not implemented what you have implemented, so I have much to learn at your feet.
You're very kind. I appreciate that.
No, I'm not kind. I'm being very honest. I've got work to do. So, better communication. Let's talk about that very quickly because people are like, well, and let's go back to, it's transactional. You're on my calendar. We've got all this stuff. You're getting the emails. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've got our systems. Our systems seem to be working until they don't.
Right.
Because a lot of people, once, you start this process, and they're not hearing a friendly voice or, "Hey, how can I help you?" Or, "Look, I'd love to introduce you to these people for a little mini master." Whatever it is that you're doing, they need to hear from you. They can't operate in a vacuum, and I think that's a big mistake with a lot of businesses. We got the money, we've got the contract, we're good to go. Now what? How do you treat your client?
I find that a lot of offers, especially when you get up into the higher ticket range, and it's just really this plagues the online space specifically. I find that a lot of offers will mistakenly think that just because someone paid you means that they will give you the benefit of the doubt. The fact that someone pays you means that you are able to position your quote unquote solution to fit enough of their problem to make a match. Now, we can get into a whole other conversation as to the hoops that some people will jump through and to sell people into a solution that doesn't really match the problem somebody has. That's a separate topic. But you essentially made a connection between the problem that they have and the solution that you have. That is it. That did not earn you any equity with the client, especially in where we're at right now with the online space and the skepticism that is so rampant and properly so, by the way. The fact that everybody else has been burned by something else before, there's not a single client that you will ever work with who has not had a poor experience somewhere else. I dare you to find one. Everyone is jaded. And with that,
And
it's
we're
really interesting.
wary. They're going to
Yeah.
be very like, "This has happened before,"
Yep.
or, "It happened to my second cousin in Topeka."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It could be anything,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
we're all and we should be wary. We should be very careful who we're trusting and who we're giving our money and our time to, and I keep going back to time. Time's one of the most critical things that we have, and it gets
100.
wasted a lot.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. People will go into it and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm worried that worried that I made a mistake. I wasted all this time, wasted all this money, but the purchase does not earn you anything beyond the money. And to be completely honest, like if we want to zoom really out and be a little woo-woo about this, the money is actually the least valuable thing because that's a one and done transaction. Your real money that so many people are leaving on the table is in the back end upsell, is in somebody purchasing from you 10 more times from an e-commerce product because they love it for that $10,000 one-on-one mastermind. Your real money is in the $20,000 upsell that you'll pitch to them in 6 months when your 10K mastermind is over because they got such good results in the 10K thing. Your real money is getting every single client that you love working with to send you 5 more people who are just like them who will send you another 5 people. Your real money is not made in the initial transaction. The money that you are leaving on the table is in everything that happens after that first yes. And so oftentimes, I made a LinkedIn post actually a while back that did very well. It was about this trust epidemic that people love to just like fearmonger around. And it's like, oh, buyers aren't trusting people anymore. And oh, it's so hard to convince people that your thing is legit and blah, 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 blah. Well, to that I say, listen, they're not wrong because let's be honest, there is a lot of issues with quality products and quality services and delivery, et cetera. But I actually couldn't disagree more that we're in a quote trust epidemic. I believe it has never been easier to gain someone's trust. The reason everyone says that it's a trust epidemic is because these buyers are and again, understandably very skeptical, very, very concerned, very weary, as you say. But when you can systematically meaning for every single client, so there's two words, phrases I use a lot, systematically and at scale. Systematically means for every single client. At scale means no matter how many clients you have. So again, it grows with you as the business grows. If you can systematically and at scale, make sure that after hours, up to a couple of days, after somebody hands you over any amount of money, you are not only delivering on a core promise, but you are over delivering on a core promise that you made. It doesn't have to be everything. You don't have to blow them away after the first 72 hours. But if you can show them every single time, every single client, that you actually give a damn, and you care about their experience, and there's limitless ways to do this, um, they will trust you forever. Trust has never been easier to get when you build your system to get it. So I actually completely disagree that yes, buyers are skeptical, buyers are concerned, but that also means that my clients, anybody who listens to this, can very, very easily turn that skepticism into a lifetime of loyalty.
I agree with you, and one thing that I have learned to my deep chagrin is that when you're excited and you've got a great client and you really, really want to work with them and you over-deliver almost immediately, something breaks down because all of a sudden they expect that level every stinking day.
Yep.
It's not possible. So I've had to learn to, sit back and say, "Shut up, Denise. Don't make promises that you really can't or shouldn't keep." Shouldn't being the operative word. And, I learned it again not so long ago. It's like, I boxed myself into a little wall. I'm dealing with it and I'm fixing it, but I'm not happy. Neither is she, to be honest.
Right. Right.
So
100%.
be
I like
careful
to
what
say
you're
that
promising.
absolutely. No, absolutely. I like to say that your, is a little woo woo, but, it gets the point across is the LTV of your client is the gap between what you promise and what you deliver. And that can go both ways. Because if you deliver under what you promise, you will have a negative client LTV. You will get refund requests. You will get chargebacks. Nobody will refer you business. If you have, if you deliver over what you promise, even by just 1%, it doesn't take that much. I'm not saying you need to go and somebody bought a $30 thing from you and you need to go and like completely change their life. Just
Are
over
you
deliver by
sure?
1%, even barely. And because no one does it, seriously, because no one does it at scale systematically. Sure, you can do it one off, two off for clients. You can do it for a group of clients while you're putting in a lot of effort to the business. But if you just take the time to build out the systems to do it for every single client, that 1% will compound into a business that is factors easier to grow than everyone else's.
Exactly. And I know you've got about 3 minutes before you have to cut out of here and go to another call. So very quickly, where can listeners learn more about your work and connect with you? And then again, you're gonna come back in the new year and I can't wait.
Well, I appreciate that. My website is just my name, bradleyrausch.com. And if you put a little slash free course beyond that, in the URL, I have a free 5-day email drip that just goes over what I call the 4 sales framework, which we covered a lot of actually today. Which is there's 4 main revenue events for every single client that you work with. There is the first purchase, there is the onboarding process, there is what I call advocacy, so that is either referrals or testimonials or both. And then there is ascensions or upsells or back-end products. And so each day covers one of those components and tons and tons. It's a very long email, just to let you know. Tons and tons of different strategies and frameworks and very specific, easy things to implement into your business.
Got it. Well, listen, you go ahead and take off. I will finish up telling everybody more about you, where to find you, and then I'll talk with you later on this afternoon.
That sounds great, Denise. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Bradley. Go forth. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, listen, everybody, we have been talking today with Bradley Rausch about why growth often gets heavier. And I know that's hard to believe as businesses scale, and why the answer isn't always more leads or more sales, which is kind of where we go. So I just need more money. I need more sales. I need it. And you'd start panicking instead of really paying attention to who you're already working with and how you can be a more beneficial help to them. And Bradley shared why the client experience after the sale is critical to long term success. We discussed how leadership style, communication, culture, and intentional onboarding all influence client trust, retention, referrals, and revenue. The key takeaway is that client success isn't something that you handle after problems arise. It's a growth strategy. And we're going to talk more about strategies when he comes back in the new year. So when businesses design a better client journey, they create stronger relationships, better outcomes, and a more sustainable way to scale. To learn more about Bradley, go to bradleyrausch.com, BradleyRausch.com, and look for him to come back in the new year. I am Denise Griffitts. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.